Joe's ready to go. Hello and welcome to Sports Opinion, the weekly sports talk show on Channel 18, which is public access TV. My name's Dirk Keller. This here is my friend Pat White.
How are you, Dirk?
I'm good, all things considered.
Yeah.
Hey, we got sunshine, a little, temperatures above freezing, or above zero, I should say. So how can we complain? I can't complain about Earl Murphy. He's always here. This is his show, and he makes it happen every week. Joe Murphy behind the camera. We have got a very special guest. The longtime Regina Boys Basketball coach, Randy Larson, is here. That's just one of your titles, of course. Head basketball coach, lawyer, head of the Primetime League and the Game Time League, and then, of course, restaurateur. I don't know how you do it, Randy. I have a hard enough time just running my own business.
Well, this time of year, your clients always come first as a lawyer, but Regina is my focus right this time, of course.
Well, and the focus was clearly on Regina last night. Unfortunately, the boys and girls took a cold bus ride to Wilton, and the boys lost their first game of the season. Record of 15-1 now. This is a Wilton team who you played earlier. I know we talked about watching the home game last month, and that was a very good competitive game. And Wilton's got an outstanding player. Again, his name?
Ty Hetzler.
Ty Hetzler. He was the quarterback on the outstanding Wilton football team, which gave Regina as good a game as anybody this past football season. And I know when I saw him on the floor at Regina earlier this year, I was very impressed with his court presence. And I guess I was a little surprised that this same guy scored 48 points last night, and you said he had 19 free throws?
He got the free throw line 19 times and made 14 of them. He was 6 for 9 on three-pointers, several of which were 4 or 5 feet beyond the line. He's 8 for 11 on twos, all of which were under heavy pressure because I put a great player on him, and he really had a great night.
How tall is he?
He's about 6'3". He plays kind of a guard forward type guy, and we don't have a guy right that size at Regina. We had one earlier in the year that decided not to play, but we have 5 pretty little guards, and then we have the 3 big post players, and I put one of the post players on him because I thought that length would bother him, and as it turned out, he was not botherable. Mm-hmm. But that's my fault. We got to do something different, whether it's a box and one, which we haven't worked on, and we will, or whether it's a smaller guy just trying to deny him. They run a kind of a backdoor cutting offense, and I just didn't think that was going to be the right move. So we tried to go with someone that would have some length on him. And to tell you the truth, the guy defending him did a heck of a job, did a great job. He never took a shot that wasn't heavily contested, but he got away from us, and it spoiled a great effort by our guys. We scored 78 points, which is almost always going to be enough, especially on the road. We shot 70% on twos. We made 10 threes, I think. Drew Cook had 38 points.
38 points.
Any other night is the headline. And he had a tremendous night, but he got 7 or 8 free throws versus 19, and he would have had the same kind of total as Hetzler if he'd gotten the line that many times. But I was very proud of our guys. Wilton plays a great zone, and our guys were patient, still scored 78 points, but you give up 82, you're going to lose. But Wilton's 10-5. They're a good ball club. They're in second place on our side of the conference. 15-1 is not too shabby, and I think the way my guys are going to approach it is we got to keep getting better. We got 4 tough games coming up in the next 5 days. We play Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday. Can't practice on Sunday.
How many of those are because of cancellation?
Just one. We always play Tuesday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
The Monday game against Bellevue was a game that we canceled, postponed from the first week of the season when we wouldn't even have practiced yet when that game was scheduled because of football. So that got bumped, and just unfortunately they got to choose when, and this is when they chose.
So now Friday you've got a big game. At North Cedar?
Yep.
They're usually pretty tough.
Well, we've never beaten them there, and I think that's true of every conference team, really. No one's ever beaten them at North Cedar until this year. Cascade beat them there. Of course, Cascade was number 2 in the state at the time. North Cedar started out the year number 2 in the state, and they've only lost to people like Cascade, and they lost twice to them and Mount Vernon. So they're a very good opponent, difficult to beat at their place, but that's what we intend to do.
They have a big crowd last night at Wilton.
Yes,
Good.
yep, they were
How was
pretty
it
excited.
officiating?
Well, the guy got 19 free throws.
Yeah, I was reading between the lines.
Tom Izzo would have had several heart attacks, but it was what it was, and we got to prevail. But when we had more twos than they did, we had more threes than they did. We got beat by 14 at the free throw line and lost by 4. So
Wow.
got to not
Yeah.
foul as much.
Did their fans rush the floor after the win?
No, but they were very supportive, especially as it looked like they were going to win the last couple minutes. And that's as it should be. And our kids are used to that. They've been the king of the hill in football for years. And of course, every guy on our team except one was on the football team, so they're used to that. But that, being 15-0 wasn't expected of this group. We have one senior that plays about 10 or 12 minutes a game, and that's the only senior we have in our rotation. But our guys are excited about the year. They want to get better and learn from this. And before I was home, I'd gotten 4 or 5 different text messages from the players saying, we're going to start getting better tomorrow.
All right. What'd you say to the kids after the game?
Great job. I told them they did a great job. Their coach let them down, and we'll get better. We'll get better, and I should have pulled a couple of different levers. Sometimes you pull them, and sometimes they work, and I should have done something different. But to tell you the truth, he got away from us in the zone early, and he did it attacking a part of our zone where we had our best, quickest perimeter defender. And so I thought a little guy wasn't the right decision, so I went with a bigger guy. And we're down 8 halfway through the third quarter. At the end of the third quarter, we tied it up. So it doesn't seem like a time to change what you're doing.
No.
And in hindsight, he goes off for about 15 in the fourth quarter, and we just didn't get him handled. And I kept thinking he'd tire. He was taking almost all outside shots. I thought he'd start missing, and I gambled and lost.
Do they have any other shooters?
Nope.
No.
You can help. We did help one time, and the guy that we left made an open 3, and I think that always keeps you from doing that too much. They're a very fine shooting team. They're shooting about 6 points a game from 3-point better than we are. We're shooting about 26%, and they're shooting 32 or so.
Wow.
So they're a decent shooting team, but nothing like him. You got to do more to get him stopped. I have not been a fan of junk defenses in my career much. I just think being solid, fundamental defense is better. But because they play zone all the time, they're very good against zones. That's what they do all day, every day in practice. And so we tried both of our zones, and neither one of them worked very well. And I should have tried something else other than what we did do. But, the guy that guarded him scored 38, so it wasn't like he got tired or worn out or didn't do his part. And he played great defense. I will never criticize the job the guy that was guarding him did, because he was on him. The guy made a couple shots where he almost bent over backwards. He made a couple threes from 4 or 5 feet beyond the line. I just want to give him credit and say that I should have tried something different, and I will next time.
Well, young Mr. Hetzler had a career night.
Sounds like LaFesta Road's name.
Yeah. Good analogy.
Well, he's always been a good player, and he's averaging 21 or 22. I was prepared for him to go for 30 or 35, but at 48, you've made mistakes as a coach. No getting around that.
Well,
Is he committed to somebody? Is he?
I don't think he's that level of player. I think he's a Loris or Dubuque or Cornell type player and be a very good player at that level, but I don't believe he's a scholarship college player at this point. But I haven't heard. He might very well be being looked at by people like Upper Iowa and Division II schools, but
is he an all-state player?
he might very well be at the end of the year, but I would doubt it. He's certainly a first-team all-conference player, but I don't think that he's a very fine player. He's a great athlete, and he's an excellent shooter. But when you're averaging 22 and you get 48, you had a special night, that's for sure.
Setting aside the choice between football and basketball, what is Drew Cook's upside in basketball? Is he a college player?
Absolutely. Oh, he's a Division I college basketball player, no doubt about that. He really loves basketball. It's a great sport for him because he's a tremendous athlete that can shoot the 3, but he's unstoppable inside. And he loves the game. He loves the collaborative aspects of it. He's a pass-first kind of guy. He loves his teammates. He loves the constant action. He's not a hyper kid, but a very high-energy kid. On the other hand, 6'5", 6'6" quarterbacks that can run, that are great athletes, that have his bloodlines and his feel for the game are once in a generation. So I think probably the football people are going to have him projected higher than the basketball people are, but I'm no expert on that. And I think that it's going to be very difficult for him to turn down the opportunities he gets to be a high Division I quarterback. I don't think he's another position in football. I think he's just born and bred to be a quarterback. You know, Marv was a tremendous quarterback. Yeah. In fact, there are knowledgeable observers that would say that Marv would just now be retiring from the NFL if he'd stayed a quarterback. He was that good of a quarterback. But of course, he was not just the greatest tight end in the NFL for a couple of years, not just caught the most balls anybody ever did as a tight end in the NFL, but a first-team All-American for Iowa. So he was a player that I think was out of position at tight end, but was just so good that he really redefined the position at that time. And of course, Hayden, with the stand-up tight ends, played perfectly into that. But Marv, in a way, got that whole thing going.
Now, Earl, have you seen Drew Cook play basketball?
No, I was wondering when the first home game was.
We play Saturday night against Mid-Prairie, one of our big rivals, and we would love to see you. We'll save you a spot right next to my mom in the front row.
Okay.
And I tell people, Jenna Lehman is a once-in-a-generation girls basketball player for Regina, and Drew Cook's the same way. You don't want to miss a chance to see these two. You got another year with Drew, but this your last year with Jenna. I told the kids at practice the other day, when you're 40 years old, you will talk about playing basketball with Drew Cook. And Phil Arndt, our other big man, is that same kind of guy. You know, he's as unstoppable as anybody. We don't get him the ball enough. But
he's a wide load.
Our guards are lucky to have those two guys to throw the ball to.
I love watching him play basketball because I think Phil Arndt knows how to use his hips and leverage people, keep them on his hip, and get that positioning for rebounds. And it's almost an inborn trait.
He's very aggressive, but he's also a great athlete. And you can see why when he pulled as a tackle, he got out there and he leveled people. He has great feet. He has great tenacity, great desire. He's the kind of player every coach dreams of, where he's going to outwork you, but he has the physical gifts to go along with that.
So Saturday night, boys and girls at home?
Yep.
Girls game first?
Yep.
What time will the girls
6
game?
o'clock.
6 or 6 p. Same time as the Hawkeye Illini game.
What time does your mom get there?
Yeah.
Right at the buzzer. My law partner, who's also my cousin, her mother was my mom's sister, brings her.
Okay.
And they get there right about 7:30. And
who's your partner
enjoy
and
the heck out
cousin?
of it. Amy Evenson.
I didn't know that.
And she is, of course, then
your cousins.
Yep, she's related to Nick Phillips, who's one of our great guards, who's only a sophomore and is a starter and lost his entire freshman year because of a broken bone in his back that he suffered in football. So for a first-year player and a sophomore, about 5'10", he's been a tremendous impact player for us and a great joy to watch.
Well, the Regina Boys team is a real treat to watch. There's a lot of talent on the floor, and they really seem to not only play together well, but enjoy playing together.
That's always job one. You know, people say, what are your goals? I say, well, the first one is for these guys to love each other and to have that show on the court, to share the ball. That's the great thing about basketball, is why it's such a quintessential American game, is anybody can be good at it, because you don't need to be tall or fast or any of those things. You just need to work at it because it's a skills game. Yeah. And secondly, you're better if you collaborate with your teammates. It's a group thing, and it's a mental and a physical game. So it's suited for certain people that like to be collaborative, that like to be aggressive, and yet to be unselfish. And that's what we try to develop in them.
Would you expand on that a little bit? You started to lead into a question I was going to ask you, which is to talk a little bit philosophically about why you love basketball so much and why you've devoted so much of your life to it.
You know,
Great question, Pat.
Pat Hardy the other day said I was almost obsessed with basketball, and I said, what do you mean by almost?
He doesn't know you like we do.
You know, it's an interesting thing, because it's solitary to develop your skills. You have to get in the gym, you have to play, and that's been one of our hurdles at Regina, because football and baseball were such kings that I would often have practice November 15th, and 8 or 9 out of my 15 guys would not have touched a basketball since February. And I go, well, that's, you know, kind of tough to shoot if you haven't touched a ball for 8 months. But Drew Cook has been part of turning that around, as Ryan Lynch and Sean Sullivan and Ross Rustmeyer and Danny Amelon did. They got to play a little bit in the offseason. But what I think is so unique about it is you can go do it on your own every day of the year. I was 30 years old before I went 2 days in a row without playing basketball, ever in my life, 2 days in a row. And so if you have that desire, you can become a good player. And look at guys like Steve Nash. in high school, he did not get one scholarship in America except the University of California, Santa Clara. 460 colleges thought he wasn't good enough to even get a scholarship. And 10 years later, he's the greatest player in the world. Yeah. Now, they weren't all that wrong. He got better. And so if you want to get better, you can. Anybody can. And then to learn how to play with people in a game that you've learned individually, because you're never any good when you're 5 individuals. You're only better when those 5 individuals come together and play together. So the scorer that can pass, the offensive player that can play defense, the guy that's big enough to rebound that also learns how to get out and defend, the guy that plays hard all the time but also will play with other people, the shooter that wants to find that extra pass, those kinds of conundrums of which are you going to be. You got to be all of them to be the great player. That's why guys like Bill Bradley and Steve Nash are so fun to me, as they exemplified an individual talent that was very team oriented, and you couldn't ask for a guy better than Drew Cook to show that.
Bill Bradley.
How often do you still play?
Well, we should preface play by slowly. I still play, but slowly, 4 days a week, and then once or twice during the week I'll play with the kids a little bit. You're not supposed to play all the time, but you can demonstrate in high school basketball. So we get out there and play a little bit with them to show them how to do some things and so forth. But it's definitely a slower paced game that I play now.
You were a walk-on for Lynn Nance at Iowa State. Who were some of the starters at Iowa State when you were there?
That was a lot of fun, and I have great respect for Coach Nance. He won a national championship after he left Iowa at Central Missouri. Then he was a highly successful coach at Washington, and he was 32 years old when he got that job, and it was a leap of faith for him to believe in me, because I had no pedigree, and to tell you the truth, we got to be friends playing basketball together at Noon League when I was an ineligible transfer from Iowa, and he just saw enough to invite me to be part of the team. And the guys that were there were Andrew Parker, Dean Utoff, Chuck Harmison, still great friends of mine. And we were 8-3 in the Big 8, and Chuck Harmison sprained an ankle, and they weren't the same without him. He was a great player. He still owns about 40 records in Australia. He played basketball in Australia for more than 20 years. The story that Lynn Nance always tells is that we're 8-3, and Chuck Harmison goes on a Sunday when we've got the day off to play with that Larson idiot in a pickup game and sprains his ankle. And that's all true. And I asked Coach Nance if he was mad about it. He says, how do you suppose Chuck got that good playing on his days off? Yeah. So he understood.
What year was that?
Oh, that had been 1977.
77.
Yep.
Okay. Well, those are some big names from the past at ISU, some big names.
Well, Andrew Parker led the Big 8 in scoring. Right before him, Herkel Ivey was number 3 in the nation in scoring, and so there were some great players to look back to. And I'd grown up playing with those games. When you're 5 foot tall in 8th grade, you're trying to get in the games in the off season. That's where the love came, I think, is seeing those guys really compete. We had great football players that played basketball back then, going back to Barry Hill, people like that, George Amundsen.
When did you start playing Iowa?
I came to Iowa as a freshman on a journalism scholarship and decided to walk on for the basketball team, and that was Dick Schultz's last year. I got to play with people like Sky King and Archie Mays, great players.
Tell us the story about how you got started with prime time and game time.
Well, back then we didn't have a specific place to play in the off season, and having been a player that played a lot all the time, I was kind of in charge of telling everybody where we're going to play. Tuesday we're at Carver Hawkeye, Wednesday we're at Corville Rec, Thursday we're at the Field House. You had to try to find a place where you didn't have 200 guys trying to get in the game. And so Coach Davis could see that we were trying to play a lot in the off season. And George Raveling, interestingly, had told Tom Davis, Larson's pickup games are better than my games were at Washington State, my real games.
Wow.
By which he just meant that we'd have some local guys, people like Mark Gannon before he got to college, and we'd take on the varsity guys, and we'd want to have our guys against their guys, and we'd beat them a lot of the time because we tried harder. And so it was just a game where we kind of were spirited about trying to compete with them. And of course, they didn't care. The varsity guys, not all of them really competed like we wanted to. And so Coach Davis just said, the NCAA has just passed legislation allowing summer leagues. It'd be a natural for you because as a lawyer, you can figure out the rules that the NCAA requires. And there's about 100 pages of rules. And from the beginning, what made it work is the Iowa players embraced it. They wanted to play in front of their fans. The fans embraced it, and all of a sudden you got a way that you can come watch the Hawks play for free. You get to sit 10 feet away from them instead of up in the 40th row. And the guys playing hard in the right way made the league a success because that's how Iowa kids have been recruited. That's the kind of kids they are. And I've started, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 leagues around the country with other programs just to help them
Really?
get started and show them how. And frequently they don't make it. Most of the time they don't make it. And they call up and say, how come your league is going on 28 years and ours fell apart? And I go, you don't have Iowa kids.
Yep.
And that's really been the difference is they play hard. They're encouraged to do it the right way and to not have it just be a level of basketball where everybody's going one-on-one and working on their jump shot. They want to play good basketball. And that's, I think, why the coaches have embraced it is we do try to get them to play with good habits. It's not just a pickup game.
We're visiting, by the way, with Randy Larson, the longtime boys head basketball coach at Regina High School here in Iowa City. You talked about the Primetime League. 28 years. Back in the day, you were at West High in the summer, unair conditioned.
You're too young to remember, but before that, we were at City High.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
I remember those days. It was
Yeah, I'm too
110
young.
degrees. We had to decide whether we
was
could
a
play
lot
or
of
not.
floor-
Sometimes
lot
it's
of floor
110.
mopping.
Yeah, we had what do you call them? Towel kids, little 8, 9, 10-year-old kids that would sit there and wipe the floor whenever it got wet. And it's always been one of my favorite stories. But those towel kids would sit on the bench, and the night of Chris Street's last game, he was in the championship game and got done with the game, takes his jersey off, tosses it to a towel kid.
Man.
So good example of how you can get a connection with your players, with your fans by having those summer leagues. So somebody says sometimes, why don't the guys just play amongst themselves? The coaches get to coach them in the summer now. And I go, yeah, but there's no fans there. And it's a connection for the program that's somewhat unique. And I think for no other reason than to keep fostering that connection and to keep building those public relations things, I think it's a good thing. And I've been blessed to have every coach so far give it their blessing because, of course, there wouldn't be a league unless those coaches wanted there to be.
No doubt.
Yeah,
no
that's
doubt.
right.
Now, you mentioned briefly the Regina girls basketball team and Jenna Lehman, the once-a-generation player. But they've got a lot of nice players on their team, too, and they've only lost a couple games this year. At one time, they were ranked. I know you're ranked, at least right now, number 3 in the state. What do you think about the girls' team?
Well, Clark Anderson does a fabulous job, and Katie Wick, Hannah Seaman,
Real talents.
Hannah Stein, Nikki Becker, Cami Verducci, Kennedy Brown, the other Wick sister, Jenna Wick. They have a core of people that really play the right way, as most women's basketball teams do, but a lot of great physical talent too. Jenna Lehman, the reason I call her once in a generation is because she could average 30 a game easily. She could be the leading rebounder in the conference. She probably does lead the conference in assists, and she wants everyone to score. She'll take her shot when it's there, but she's always looking to pass the ball. And as a defensive player, she leads the conference in steals 3 years in a row, I'm sure. And they really do a great job of turning defense into offense. And I just have great respect for the way they've come together. And they're going to be a challenger to go a long way in the state tournament this year because they got a nice blend of seniors and then a lot of sophomores like Verducci and Brown and the younger Wick that'll take them a long way. Katie Wick is a very fine player, in my opinion, a first-team all-conference player, too.
All-around
great
athlete.
soccer player.
Yep.
But I'd be remiss. She has had as many points as Jenna many times, and she's a fine passer, too. But she kind of is on the receiving end of a lot of great passes from Jenna. And Jenna's just blessed as an athlete to get out on the fast break and get some layups. She's as good a layup shooter as I've ever seen in girls basketball.
Is Jenna Lehman going to play college basketball?
I'm just delighted that she's going to play for my good friend Randy Peterson at Co. I think it isn't official, but I think she's going to go to Co. And Randy Peterson, of course, a former Iowa player and great friend. All of her players play in the Game Time League, which is the women's equivalent in the summer. And I'm just delighted if Jenna ends up there because great education, great coach, great program, close to home. I'm just delighted if that's what it ends up being.
And Katie Wick, I'm guessing, will play soccer in college.
That's what I'm told, is that she's just a super soccer player.
Oh, I've seen her. Since she was a little girl, I've seen her
I've yet to
play.
see my first soccer game, so.
She's, well, unfortunately, I've spent way too many cold, wet Saturday mornings out at Kickers Park with my now 18-year-old, soon-to-be 18-year-old daughter, Mariah.
Out of the way.
And
I did go to soccer state championship once because Regina was in it. But,
Well, yeah.
that's the only time.
And that's another storied program at Regina.
Sure is. Four
boy,
straight.
Unbelievable. And Coach Marv Cook has no problem with the soccer program because they always seem to provide at least one outstanding place kicker for the Regals football team.
Well, and Danny LaRue was a great soccer player who's also a first-team All-State football player. So there's some crossover there. I think
Daniel Murray.
soccer's a collaborative game, too, and a great training for these guys. Doc LaRue does a great job with the Regina soccer boys team.
Well, if you get a chance, Saturday, around 6 o'clock, the girls will start, and the boys will tip off around 7:30.
It's always a little bit flexible because we have 4 or 5 games a day, with the younger grades preceding, but 7:30 is pretty accurate.
Oh, yeah. Well, you've really got a good thing going there with both boys and girls at Regina. I know the JV teams are having a lot of success in basketball, and I know my son's just getting started. His first game is tomorrow after, I think 3 weeks of postponements and cancellations.
And I don't want to be remiss, sorry to interrupt, but, Drew Cook is special. But this is a team of very high achieving basketball players, and to do what they're doing as sophomores and juniors. Our sophomores are Nick Phillips, Nathan Stanger, and
Suckamel?
Ethan Suckamel.
Ethan.
They're all 3 tremendous point guards that could start at point guard. Only one of them can, so a couple of them playing out of position. Then you got Connor Brown, Nick Ziniel, Phil Arndt, and Drew Cook, the 4 tremendous juniors. Any one of them could easily lead their team in scoring if it wasn't for Drew being on this team, and would have led previous Regina teams in scoring. And then Mike Seal, as a senior, is really providing great leadership, great minutes. Just a joy to have him around. So I did want to mention all those other guys.
And speaking of those guys, I have to do a little self-promotion. I don't know if you know this, but last Monday, Martin Luther King Day, shot a TV commercial out at Regina in the locker room with a number of Randy's players and Marv's players. And it's a TV ad that's going to run in the Super Bowl this Sunday between the third and fourth quarter. And it's for the University of Iowa College of Dentistry.
Yep.
And the Regina Athletic Director, Brett Jones, plays the role of coach in front of the chalkboard. And we've got a number of your basketball players, Marv's football players, in Hawkeye jerseys in the locker room listening to Coach Jones teach them how to brush their teeth. And young Mr. Seal and young Mr. Arndt are in there. It was mostly seniors. Who's the short little Bud Supple's nephew? Help me out, Earl. Casey Beaver.
Casey Beaver.
Casey
What a great
Beaver,
football player.
and he has a starring role at the very end of the ad. All I'll say is look for it. It's hilarious. It's funny. I'm bragging a little bit, but people will talk about it. I
I
guarantee
understand.
you.
Right at the end of the third quarter in the Super Bowl, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Right at the end of the third quarter is when this ad will run. It'll run elsewhere in the day during the pregame programming, but everyone will see it at the end of the third quarter. And I need to email it to you because I finally finished it up just yesterday.
But just so people know, we didn't pay $1 million for an ad on the Super Bowl.
No.
This is a public service announcement.
You could look at it that way. It's the university's College of Dentistry. They're paying for it. It's not a freebie. It's really expensive, actually. But it's a high-profile position, trying to encourage people not only to brush their teeth and floss their teeth, but if you need dental work, you can always come to the College of Dentistry and get it done quickly, get it done well by the top people in the state of Iowa.
I'm one of their patients myself, and I need quite a bit of dental work with my Mountain Dew habit, so I can attest to the care that they give.
That Mountain Dew will
Randy,
kill you.
when does your tournament play start, and who's?
We have an odd quirk in the schedule because our conference is just doing things a little bit earlier, but we have 20 days off between our last regular season game, which is next Friday, the 7th, to our first playoff game, which will be the 27th.
That's nuts.
It is nuts. We have a couple of scrimmages arranged in there, but that's going to be a challenge and an opportunity for our guys. We're going to have a little boot camp there to get better if we can get into that. Everybody gets in the playoffs, of course, in Iowa. We'll have a bye in the district, so we have to win 2 districts games and a sub-state game. We've been in that sub-state championship
who's
3
in your
times.
district?
Mount Vernon is the highest rated team. We'll get a chance at Wilton again.
Good.
And then in the other, if we get to the sub-state, we've got to deal with Northeast Goose Lake and North Cedar. but we don't have to deal with Cascade or anybody else that's in the top 10. I think we'd probably be the highest rated team in there if we keep winning the way we have been, but definitely a real challenge.
You mentioned Northeast Goose Lake. You had a road game there a week ago last Saturday, if I'm not mistaken.
Worse yet, I had to drive.
You had to drive the bus?
Well, the bus went at 11 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not a big fan of my guys sitting on the bleachers for 7 hours because we had 5-6 games.
Yeah.
So I drove a van with the 7 of the varsity guys, and Drew drove up with his father, and drove the van up at about 4 o'clock. It was a white knuckler, but we made it.
I've been to Goose Lake, and I know it's not easy to get there. And I know they've got a really good program. It's a long drive. It's not an easy drive. And you guys pulled off a big victory there at Northeast High
It was
School.
the first test of a rated team. They'd start out the season rated, I think, 4th in the state, and they'd lost a couple to Cascade. And that was a great win for us. And they put the triangle and 2 on Nathan Stanger and Drew Cook, and I think they held Drew to 36 that night. So
Now, Drew Cook is having an all-state year. He's a junior. He's averaging 28 points a game. I think I got that
since
right.
Christmas, but 24 for the
24
whole
points
season.
a game
Yeah.
and 8 rebounds per game. But also, something I think is very unique is your average margin of victory is 11 points per game. That's substantial. That's impressive. And then the assist to turnover ratio is also very unique.
An assist to basket. You know, the other night we had 20 assists. We only had 22 baskets. So there's not a lot of one-on-one out of this group, although they can do that. But most time when you go one-on-one, somebody helps. You got to make the pass, and we've done a nice job of that. We've out-rebounded every team, which when you start 3 guards that are 6 foot or under is a testament to Phil and Drew. But also our guards have gone in there and snagged some rebounds. We have great athletes, and that's some credit to that goes to the football program. But we're proud of those stats, and those stats didn't get overturned last night. We had 8 turnovers is all last night and 20 assists, and we out-rebounded them by 2. But we got to keep getting better defensively.
You got a great weight program out there.
They do, and that's, Canellis has done a fabulous job with that weight training. And guys say, what do you do in basketball for weight training? I say, I don't tell Mr. Canellis anything to do. He's in charge of that. But I would guess that our guys lift weights about 300 days a year.
Oh, man.
So that has an impact. And he makes it so that they enjoy it. They want to do it. There's no dragging anybody in. You know what time they lift weights?
Oh, 7 a.m., 6 a.m.?
Yeah, 6:30, something like that. So this is a commitment that people make. And some nights we're in the gym practicing. We only have one gym, so some nights we're practicing until 8:30 at night. So they make a real commitment to it. And I know enough not to get in the way of the strength and conditioning people at Regina. They know far more about it, and they do a fabulous job year-round.
Well, once again, Saturday night, next home game, 6 p.m. for the girls' game against Mid-Prairie, and then around 7:30 for the boys' game.
And then also Monday would be our second to last home game. Monday we have Bellevue here at home, and then we'll go on the road Tuesday at Cascade, and the next Friday at West Branch. So
Is it
3 more home
Bellevue
games.
or Bellevue Marquette?
No, Bellevue.
Bellevue, okay. Well, it goes fast. I still can't. Now, do all the other conference or district teams, well, I got to get this right, do all your other conference teams have that long a layover between the end of the regular season?
Our conference teams do. Everybody ends the same time in our conference.
Everybody.
Most other schools go another week. Our conference just for some reason ends a week earlier than other people do. And then, of course, because we have a bye in the districts, that gives us 3 more days layoff if we win a couple more games. But I don't think anyone can catch us for that first spot in the district. In fact, I know they can't because the seeding gets over with your 15th game. And of course, we were unbeaten during those 15 games. So
Amazing. Well, as disappointed as you were last night with your first loss of the season, you had to almost be as disappointed when you found out about the Hawkeye men's basketball loss to Michigan State. I was there, and I can tell you, the electricity in Carver Hawkeye Arena was palpable. It was thick. It was...
Students started lining up at 3 in the afternoon.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
had nice new shirts on and great color scheme for the arena.
Yeah. Yeah, and the crowd was really into the game. It was the first time in years that we had to stand most of the game.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't usually happen.
No, it doesn't. And the crowd was into it. The game also just seemed to go by like that, snap of a finger, and it was over. There was just, it was like watching 2 well-trained heavyweight boxers, maybe middleweight boxers, because there was just a lot of action. And it was just blow after blow. And unfortunately, as we know, the Hawkeyes lost to Michigan State, who had 2 of their starters out. The Hawkeyes had a golden opportunity, as we know, to take one for Michigan State for once. It didn't happen. I think Fran summed it up best. They weren't tough enough last night. Time after time, Iowa played some of the best defense I've seen them play in years.
Good defense on both sides.
Yeah.
Michigan State always plays tough defense.
Well, Michigan State clearly had been down this road before, and they were mentally tougher. But there were so many times during this game last night where Iowa was on the verge of putting the game away, time after time, after a great defensive stop, and then they'd come down and throw the ball away, or come down and miss a shot.
Or go 15 minutes without scoring a basket.
Yeah,
That
how about
doesn't help.
I don't want to play devil's advocate, and I have great respect for Fran McCaffrey, but I do not agree that this is a team that doesn't have a lot of mental toughness. I don't think there's anybody tougher than Zach McCabe and Adam Woodbury and Mike Giselle, and they throw their body around. Adam Woodbury threw his body, and the ball just kind of squirted out from underneath him and so forth. So I would disagree with that, but I know what he's trying to do. He's got to develop that culture of toughness and viewing that as a virtue, and that's all good, but I think this team's got a lot of toughness. I can tell you one advantage I had watching that game at 2 a.m. on the TV recorder that you didn't have is there was no question that Basabi got fouled on that putback. No question, because I slowed
Last
it down
second
and
shot
showed
of regulation.
he hit him right on the arm, and it caused him to miss because it caused him to leave it short. You don't always get that call, but that was one that we should have gotten.
What about goaltending on that play? I also noticed a Michigan State guy put his hand through the net.
A little guy, but I didn't think that was one that they would always call in that situation because it isn't supposed to be called unless it affects the basket being scored. And of course, Basabi's shot was low.
Do you think it did?
I do.
Yeah.
Well, I think there were several points that they should have called fouls. There was one in particular where a guy landed on Zach McCabe's back.
Yes.
They didn't call any foul.
Nothing. And he lost the ball and gave up a quick bucket to
No
Michigan
doubt.
State.
And they have a tendency to grab.
Oh, yeah.
When you drive by them, they reach out and grab you, and most of the time they didn't call it.
No,
Well, they teach that, reaching in to steal the ball when you drive. They teach that, and they
right.
just hope you can't call them all. But we got 43 free throws.
Well, I was going to say, if they'd have called every foul that I think they should have called, we'd have been at the line 50, 55 times. And, of course, we missed a lot of front ends. But
a lot.
the free throw percentage wasn't bad. I mean, 30 out of 43 is tolerable. You're never going to be happy when you lose by 2. You want to make more. But
I thought they did one thing that was real progress. I've been saying for 8 or 10 months that this team, just because their makeup, doesn't really have a natural matchup on a great scorer that's a 6'5", 6'4" type kid. Stauskas is an example of that. Pierre Pierce over in France was, because our bigger guys like White and Basabi and so forth are too big for that kind of guy. And Devin's not a tremendous defensive player night in and night out. And now you got Mike Giselle guarding the quickest player, who guards that 6'5", 6'6" guy. Giselle's probably a little too small, but more importantly, he's got to guard the quick guard because Devin's not going to guard a 5'10", 5'11" type guy. And we got the job done on Harris.
8 points or something.
9.
9.
First time all year.
Single
All
digit.
year that he hadn't been in
Double figures.
Wow.
And so we showed some progress there, and of course we played zone most of the night, but I wonder if at some point, I know that Basabi and Aaron White deserve their starting positions, but if you look at them, they're both 4s because they don't shoot the 3. They're not going to be able to guard a 6'5", 6'6" kid. And now you got 2 3s in Utah from McCabe coming off the bench because Basabi and White deserve to start. But if you could mix and match those a little bit where you had a 3 and a 4 together, where White and Utah were together, or McCabe and White, and have it so you have a shooter and a little bit more active perimeter player matched with that other 4 type player, I think that's a better matchup. I don't know that you can do it because Basabi deserves a start, and so does White.
Well,
but the more minutes we can get like that, the better we are.
It's now clear, to me at least, I think to most of us, that Aaron White is so much better around the basket than he is on the perimeter.
He's a 4. He's a 4 that's very mobile and can really
Got
run.
tremendous skills.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But when he's on the perimeter, his effectiveness is just not as much.
Well,
I thought the
and
zone.
they have a 3 on him all the time because they got the 4
Right.
on Basabi because Basabi even goes out on the floor less than Aaron. So now Aaron, instead of using that great athleticism to go by people, which he can do on the break, he doesn't get to do it in the half court much because they've got a 3 on him.
Well,
I think Fran deserves a lot of credit
Oh,
for that
tremendous.
zone trap.
Oh,
Yeah.
It was
and they
very
played it.
effective.
Didn't you think watching last night that if they played that zone defense better than you've seen, maybe ever?
Yeah.
They helped so much.
the last shot of the game was a good shot.
Well,
Clemens did a tremendous defensive
Best
job with
conference
his
game he's
minutes.
had.
I mean,
Yes.
still very little offense, but he wasn't in there for offense.
he stepped up and made a couple free throws when
Yeah.
we were
Yeah.
really struggling at
Yes,
the
he
free
did.
throw
I
line.
was,
Yes, he
I
did.
was surprised.
Well,
You know what surprised me on the box score this morning when I looked at it is Adam Woodbury took only 1 shot.
Yeah, and
I,
made
I
it.
couldn't believe that.
And made it.
It
Stepped
was
under.
the first basket we made in the game.
Left-hander. Yep.
oh, that's right.
Yeah, it was
Step
nice.
under move.
And I still think Woodbury had one of his best games ever.
He did. He
He
fought.
very
rebounded.
active.
I had a pregame meal with 2 scouts from the NBA that were here. One of them, Mike Bourne, who has been very prominent with Portland, one of their the top guy really they have from Des Moines, who played at Iowa State and played in the Primetime League years ago. And you can bet they're very interested in Woodbury.
Oh, sure.
One of the things, Iowa fans have a tendency to be a little disappointed in Woodbury.
You think?
But you got to keep reminding them to think back to Lowhouse and Les Jepson. I mean, they
AC
did
Earl.
really blossom till
AC Earl, yeah.
the very end of their career.
Sure. AC Earl was not offered a Division I scholarship other than by Iowa. Was not offered one, and he made $5 million.
Well, and the casual fan doesn't see
what'd
the
you
imposing presence,
AC
the
Earl
block
made $5 million.
shots,
Oh my God.
the rebounds, the box outs, the ball being thrown away from the side of a big man like Woodbury.
His defensive presence is very important.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and his passing. You see how they run that offense through him. And I give Fran a lot of credit because last year Woodbury didn't make an appearance very often in the last 8-10 minutes of a game. And he's gone back to that where he's playing a lot at the end. And Gabe Olasany, what a tremendous backup. Out of the center position, we're getting great production. And also, Wasabi's doing great work when he plays center in there, too. So he's got a difficult job to get those 11 guys some playing time. He's done it masterfully. I just think that's just sometimes on a roster you end up with nobody at that particular size.
We'll win some more games, won't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I still think we have a very good chance of winning the Big Ten or being
Yep.
second or third.
Yep. Oh,
No doubt about it.
I think anything less than third place is going to be really disappointing at this stage.
You know, one of the things that always interests me about Tom Izzo, he did it again last night. I never see any other Division I coach do this. He comes out for the warm-up, goes and sits on his bench and focuses like a laser on us, warming up,
Looking at him.
watching how we move, how we shoot. It's very interesting.
I thought it was really clear last night as the game progressed that one of the main reasons Michigan State was staying with Iowa, because again, Iowa threatened to pull away and really blow the roof off that game. I thought Izzo was a difference maker. I would watch him in timeout, and the way he talked to these kids and pointed out stuff to them, you could just and then how they responded after the timeout. These kids knew how to react to his direction, and it showed. They were mentally prepared for the Hawkeyes, and they were mentally tough when it counted. They made the big shots, and I give them credit. They made the big shots when it counted.
And
Well,
that
remember
kid,
also-
the guy that made the 3, I think that was it.
Bird.
Bird.
It's
It's like his fourth one of the year.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't got to play much until these injuries, but look at a guy like Costello.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
Everybody says, oh, he came out of nowhere. He was
Oh,
Mr.
he did
Michigan.
come out
Yeah.
of nowhere.
You know,
Yeah.
he's a great player that just can't get any minutes ahead of Dawson and Payne. So they
Well,
have horses.
One of the
They
things
do.
I learned last night, which I didn't understand at all last year, is Denzel Valentine, who everybody thought was a top-flight recruit. And I thought, well, he's not doing anything. Well, he certainly did last night.
Pretty talented.
He's got really a lot of talent.
Michigan State was up against the wall,
And
and
he's
nobody.
Anthony Clemens' high school teammate, by the way.
Oh, is that the one?
Yeah.
Well, I also thought it was great that Fran played Clemens as much as he did. He went with him for extended periods in the first and second half when a lot of people in the crowd were grumbling. Why isn't Gasell back in there? Why is Clemens in there? But I thought Clemens did everything that Fran wanted him to and then some. And this is a very important game for Clemens. He's a Michigan boy.
Yes.
And like you said, he's playing against his old high school teammate.
Yeah.
It was.
Izzo gave him a hug before the
Did he?
game. Yeah. Anthony walked over to say hello to him, and Izzo got up and took a couple steps forward.
Well,
and gave
Izzo's a
him
class act, but he gets away with murder on that sideline.
Well, what a great play by Mike Giselle to get to the rim with 4 seconds to go.
It was.
Almost went in, almost got fouled. Just a tremendous play. And then give Fran credit at the end of regulation. You know, Devin Marble gets a 6-footer.
Yeah.
With a pretty good look
Yeah.
at it.
And missed it.
We had the shots both times.
Yeah,
Right.
but that's just great coaching.
Gazelles would have tied
One
it.
thing that I listen to the radio and watch it on TV, and both of them kept saying that at the end of the game, with 2 minutes to go, the officials stopped blowing the whistle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which they'll do just about every
Yeah,
game.
I think they did.
Well, that plays right into Michigan State's
That's right.
style.
Physical.
Yes.
You know, I read something, and I don't know if you guys knew this. I'd never heard of it before, but Izzo, at times throughout the season, will have his team practice in football shoulder pads and helmets.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've never heard of that before, but they play like football players out there, grabbing, pushing, shoving,
Well,
and just being
I
physical.
remember that 2 of the biggest shovers and grabbers weren't even on the court.
Yeah.
Well, and the funny play to me was when Woodbury starts to cut through the lane, and their guy just body blocked him, just stopped him.
Yeah.
There's a classic example of a foul that's always going to be a foul because you're impeding player movement. And the player acted like he'd been accused of robbing a bank. He said, "What? What?"
Yeah.
And Izzo's over there going, "What?"
Yeah.
I go, "Come on, guys, that's a foul."
It was
at every
all
level
night
of basketball.
long. They were just stunned that the referee kept calling them for fouls. And they got away with so many that they didn't call. How about,
It's an
did you
act.
replay the travel call that wasn't called, the 3-step
Yeah.
layup?
How about that?
You ought to see that on replay.
I did, and that was a clear travel. And I like the announcers for saying it, but I'll tell you what, that technical for less than what
Which came
Izzo
right after
did
the non-call.
about 12 times was, very hurtful.
Yeah.
Gave them 2 points. But that was a difficult time, and I think you have to do something to get the officials' attention sometimes. And
Just
I
maybe
don't
not
blame you
at
for
that
getting
very
it.
moment.
But, not 5 minutes later, Izzo was 10 feet out of the coach's
yeah.
box.
2 possessions
Talking to
later.
an official who shouldn't talk to one coach without talking to the other. And that's Izzo. I mean,
Yeah.
that's Hall of Fame getting you a little extra leeway.
Yeah, I agree. Very
But, Fran
disappointing.
doesn't back down. Fran doesn't back down from coaching against Izzo. He brings the same intensity, and I appreciate Fran. I've been to a lot of practices, and Fran is very calm at practice 99% of the time, and yet that passion during the games, I think, is important to a team. Your team has to know that your coach is invested fully as you are, and I don't blame him one bit for the passion.
No.
You're going to make a mistake or two in the light of passion, but you can't have it both ways, fans. You can't say, why can't he do all that without doing the other? Well, because it's all part of the pie.
Maybe they said something on TV about the technical. I assumed it was something in his language.
Well, why would you think that? Because he's from Philadelphia?
Because he wasn't doing anything that deserved a technical.
Well, that doesn't always mean anything. Yeah, but you're right.
FCK.
Yeah. Well, now, let me ask you this, Coach, from a coaching standpoint. Where in the second half were Gabe Olashaney and Utah?
I think he was a little disappointed. Jared made some great plays, and you could tell that Jared's really trying to listen to what they say, which is drive that ball, be aggressive, take your shots, and he misses a couple free throws. And I just think that right
2
now
in a row.
he's had many games this year when Utah's been part of a group that was on the floor when we turned games around or when we expanded leads, and he's left him in. He's always expanded his minutes when he's part of those groups. But last night, I just think he decided he had to go with the girl he took to the dance with his starters, and they did a great job. But I'm one that thinks Woodbury needs to play ahead of Olashaney, but that Olashaney really does some great things. And,
Yes, he does.
And I like the way he starts Adam Woodbury. But, you can only play 5 at a time.
Yeah, but they went 15 minutes without a field goal.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, part of it was because
Free
Got
throws.
fouled every time.
Yeah, a lot of fouls.
Okay.
We didn't miss a lot of shots
We
in
were-
that
that's
time.
right.
Yeah.
particularly when Devin was playing point. There's a lot of driving to the basket,
And you,
and Michigan State's grabbing, bumping.
And whatever else you want to say about Michigan State, they are always going to guard you. They're always going to guard you. He will insist on that, and that's something Fran McCaffrey is known for too. And there may very well have been a play where somebody that didn't play at the end hadn't got the job done defensively. It isn't, of course, Jared's natural instinct to play physically. He's not a kid that's going to be out there pushing and shoving, and I thought he did a great job on the boards. He really rebounds in traffic beautifully, and he is one of those guys that can go create a shot, and Fran says that. He's one of our best creators. But on the other hand, the guys he's putting in there, you got to play Aaron White, you got to play Devin Marble, you got to play a guard, you got to play a big guy.
What I think maybe the most impressive Michigan State defensive tactic was guarding Josh Oglesby. I mean, he made 1 3. He didn't take very many shots. He just worked his tail off trying to get open, but he couldn't.
And he had the eye of the tiger last night. Again, you could see it after he made that first 3, but that was his last 3. He, like you said, could not get open, couldn't get loose. They clamped down on him.
He'd run in circles. They'd screen for him 2 3 times, and they'd still be
Well,
right
he's
on
made tremendous progress defensively, but he's very fundamentally sound defensively. He's a much better athlete than people think. He's a 6'5" kid that's strong and works hard on defense. Nevertheless, there are a couple people on the team that probably are still better perimeter defenders than he. And a coaching question that you have to ask yourself is, if you can't get open and can't get shots, then do you play him, or do you play Jared, or do you give Devin those opportunities, or what do you do?
And he got hurt last night. I was afraid
Came back
that
in.
something happened with the same foot that had kept him out. He came back in.
Yeah, they both did. Him and Marble. I think Marble must have knocked knees.
Well, it looked like cramps to me.
Well, that's what I
I thought
thought.
Marble had cramps, yeah.
Did he?
That's what the TV people said. I don't know if they got information on that or just
Well,
guessing.
he was
but-
stretching it out, and he came right back in. I thought with the cramps he'd be done.
He was stretching it out in warm-ups before the game. Spent
Was he?
a lot of time on the floor.
Well, he
I
went to
thought
the
that was a
locker room.
controversial call, is that they didn't stop the play for him being hurt.
Well,
Can you?
Isn't the rule that you don't stop it to try to take an advantage?
But they let more passes go than I've seen them do, and I think when the player doesn't come down the court, they stopped it later or earlier for a play where 2 people were on the floor and they stopped it.
Yeah.
But it's a judgment call. But
So they've got the men have a big game Saturday at Illinois, 6:30 on the Big Ten
And
Network.
Dirk's favorite team.
My least favorite team.
in a tailspin.
Oh man,
What is going on?
6 in a row. Well, they're playing good teams now, and
Why is Illinois?
a friend of mine last night
Their
during the
program
Hawkeye
is in
game.
the tank, football and
Yeah.
basketball.
Well, he texted me. He's a coach in Springfield, Illinois, and he said you're not going to have any problem with Illinois. They can't shoot.
Well, every
we know
game's a
better
problem in
than
the Big
that.
Ten, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Anytime you go on the road in the Big Ten, it's a problem.
Well, they've lost 6 in a row. Here's the real fly in the ointment. I don't know if you realize this, but Iowa has not won in Champaign since 1987. That's 27 years. That was the game where the Hawkeyes were down 21 points at halftime, and Brad Lohaus and
Tom Davis is
James Moses.
yep. I mean, that's a long time. Iowa's taken some really good teams to Champaign and lost. Iowa's had some leads in Champaign late in games and lost. So here's another opportunity to shed the disappointment of last night's defeat to Michigan State and make another statement.
Maybe we're intimidated by the Chevy Blazers in the parking lot over there. I got to strike a blow for Bruce Pearl once in a while. That still amazes me, that you can have someone on tape telling people what happened. You can give that to the NCAA, and you get in trouble.
You
Instead
and
of Illinois get in
we
trouble.
were all here when that happened. And,
Unbelievable.
And the Illini fans still blame Iowa, still blame Bruce Pearl, still blame whoever they can point their fingers at. It's like they have. It's like they're bipolar.
How many years were you a county attorney? 28?
24.
It's like that
Plus 8 is
defendant that
assistant.
goes in there and starts saying about how terrible this has been to go through this, and the judge says, "Now, were you sorry for doing it or sorry for getting caught?" Illinois was definitely sorry for getting caught, but Illinois has some very good teams, and there's no shame. They have great playing atmosphere over there, but that's not going to get the job done Saturday. The Hawks are going to win Saturday.
The Hawks need to get tough, like Fran said, and each time they've lost a game this year, they have bounced back. I think they're the only team, one of the only teams in the league not to have back-to-back losses.
Well, we've played very well in the losses. We haven't had losses where we
Well,
played badly.
I was
We were
gonna say
great
that.
at Wisconsin. We were great,
Yep.
So,
Even last night, I don't think it's so much bouncing back. I just think we got beat.
well,
Played very well.
Michigan State made the big plays, big shots, the big stops.
Well, that three-pointer
and
was
Iowa has to do that more consistently, especially at home. And the other thing, too, I thought was glaring last night about the men's game, Michigan State was quicker at virtually every position.
Well, they got
Their
some-
team speed,
They've got
wow.
quick kids.
Oh.
well, I think that'll be interesting for Fernandez as he goes along. Does he shift gears a little bit and say, I'm going to play Clemens and Giselle and Marble together sometimes? Because we can match up with people quickness-wise if you play those three people together.
Yep.
And I think another thing is we've lost so many close games, and you talk about mental toughness and a culture of winning and learning how to win and finishing off games. A lot of it also has to do with what's our identity late in the game. Do we all know what we're going to do in terms of we're always going to do this? What they've mainly done is they've gone to Devin.
Yeah.
And Devin's a great, great player, but the number of times that he's been able to go one-on-one and finish the game off with a winning basket, it just hasn't gone in so far as often as we'd hoped.
No.
And so we'll see if we continue
Well,
that.
and that's partially because they are pretty certain that's what we're gonna do.
No one else can.
So they're all sagging on it.
Yeah.
And look at Gasell. He took the last shot in overtime last night, coast to coast, length of the court.
And I love the shots that Devin has gotten.
Oh, yeah.
I give him great
Well,
credit for
not
taking
quite
that on.
coast to coast, but, because
Yeah.
Oglesby inbounded it to him near the center
Yeah.
line.
Well, we've got about 5 minutes left in the show. We want to talk a little bit about the Iowa women's program, a program that's near and dear to both your hearts. And by the way, I want to thank you both. I was at the last home game with Indiana, and my kids got to sit in your seat and your seats. Thank you very much for
I
that.
had a high school game, of course.
Yes, you did.
He had a dinner engagement.
Yes, he did. Saturday
That's
night.
not an excuse in my book.
Oh, well. Iowa got a chance, Lisa Bluter and staff got a chance to right the first wrong of the conference season when they lost the season opener, conference opener, at Indiana. They beat them pretty handily here Saturday night. Now they've got a big one tonight at Minnesota. It's another rematch of a game that Iowa won earlier this season at home. And then
Not easily, by the way.
no, Minnesota, and I was really surprised at Minnesota's record. Iowa's record 16-5 and 5-3 in the conference. Minnesota, let's see here, they are 13-8 and 2-5 in the conference.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that record too. They start what I think are two of the best players in the league. Rachel Banham, who's a junior,
She's tough.
at least the game she played against us, and I've seen her before, I think she's the player of the year. And
I do too.
the writers have picked Maggie Lucas at Penn State.
Maggie's something special
But
too.
I think Banham is better. And now they have this freshman center from Sweden who's really skilled.
Here we go. Doesn't Minnesota have those two starters who average a double-double? You mentioned Rachel Bannon. She's 23 points a game. No.
This
No,
Amanda Zahi.
Zowie.
Zowie is 14.5 points a game, 10, almost 11 rebounds per game.
And only a freshman.
Is she a freshman?
She's very impressive.
Oh, my.
What I think is notable about what Lisa Bluter's done with this year's team is she just doesn't have any size. She's moved Allie Distroff in the starting lineup, so now you got a girl who weighs 120 pounds playing power forward and just doing a fabulous job. She's made the mismatches work for her more than she's had them go against her. And the one thing you know about their players is they're always going to play with great joy. They're always going to be totally collaborative. There's nobody selfish. And we will wait a long time to see somebody be as effective as this point guard has been. Samantha Logic is a lot of fun to watch.
She's a once-in-a-generation gal.
Melissa Dixon, one of the great three-point shooters, who's been not as steady as she was.
Three-point in, free throw.
Yep,
Yeah.
great shooting, and it's been really fun to watch this team. And I think they're getting better and better as they learn how to play with this four-guard lineup.
I can't think of her name, but when are we going to get the injured big gal back?
Well, she's
Practiced the other
practicing.
day, but
She didn't dress. I thought we might see her dress.
I don't
last
believe that she'll
Saturday.
play a major role this year, even if she does get back healthy, just because she just missed too much time and wasn't in the rotation before she got hurt. So I don't think that's going to save
Can't
us.
be in playing condition. I mean, when you
Oh,
got a
no.
knee or
Claire
knee
Till and Callie Peschel are just going to have to continue to do it. But Allie Distroff and Samantha Logic, Samantha's going to have to guard some fours, and we're just going to have to battle. But on the other hand, the other team's got to guard us too.
That's right. And Bethany Doolittle is having a great year.
Yeah.
She had 7 blocks against Indiana. Joe, how are you doing on time? Her blocks, we've got 1 minute, so we're going to wrap it up. Also, for the Iowa women, they will have Nebraska here at home on Saturday at 2 p.m., so come out. We don't have too many home games left. No TV for tonight, no TV for Saturday.
I think the kids are in
KXIC.
free in that game Saturday. We've
Are they
always done
really?
that on weeknights, but I think this is a weekend game and the kids are in free. So
Okay.
inquire about that. That'd be a great night to pack the house for 2 o'clock.
It's Girl Scout Day.
Yep.
And we had a great crowd Saturday
Atmosphere
night.
will
There
be
was
good.
close to 8,000 people there. It was a great crowd.
Courtesy
And,
of Midwest One Bank.
Yes, Midwest One
And
did
the
a
Go
great
Red
job.
for Women game that you guys
But don't worry, Randy.
criticized.
Yeah, I will continue to criticize that. But having said that, we're out of time, so we're going to have to wrap it up. Randy Larson, longtime boys head basketball coach at Regina, thank you very much for being here. We wish you the best of luck the rest of the season. And on behalf of Pat White and Earl Murphy, I'm Dirk Keller, thanking you for watching Sports Opinion every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. and every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on Channel 18. You can catch it on Facebook, or you can always go to patv.tv and you'll find the program there. Until then, thanks for watching, and remember this: either you're a Hawk and a Regal, or you're not. Go Hawks, go Regals, whip 'em good.